What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So I wanted to make sure I get this in before. I think I had put it up real quick on that video the other day about USC and Zachariah Branch's performance, the freshman, what he did in his first game. But it is the first time that they've had a kick return since 2019, which is crazy to think. I think that was Velus Jones, who is a receiver kick returner for the Chicago Bears right now. But there's someone to do a kickoff return and have a touchdown catch in one game. It was Adoree Jackson, I believe, in 2016, so it was that long ago. And then the first time a freshman did those two things in a game as well was also Adoree Jackson in 2014, most likely his freshman year also. So that's freaking crazy. Obviously, he's in good company because Adoree Jackson was a pretty fun dude to watch and very fast as well, like him, but obviously playing both different positions. I always thought Adoree would have been a better receiver anyways, but he somehow still made a pretty good career. He's got in his second contract in the NFL, so he's doing something good at that defensive spot. So, but either way, I still think this freshman is going to be truly something special. Obviously, he's getting all the hype. Even they're trying to talk about him more than how kind of bad still the USC's defense is, but either way, it's still looking up for them going into this week against Nevada. So USC did make a couple of pretty much future offers, a lot of interest from the 2026, 2027 class, even 2025 as well. Start off with 2027, the defensive edge player Richard Wesley was recently offered. They also offered a 2025 safety in Martellus Carter. I think he's an on-3 300 player, so he has some talent. A top 2026 offensive tackle Kenyi Pepe, hopefully I'm saying that correct, is a local guy from LA, so obviously USC is a contender, he says. They also offered an elite 2027 wide receiver Ethan Feaster. I believe he's from the state of Texas, so obviously taking another guy from there. And then the 2024 linebacker Ephraim Asiata. I don't think I'm saying that first name correct, but he is a guy that they recently did offer after they weren't able to get some of the other linebackers in their 2024 class, and he recently is going to set up a visit at some point in September as well. So hopefully he's going to be coming out. I think he's pretty high on BYU. He is from the state of Utah, but hoping to be able to get him because he does look like a pretty talented dude himself. And then a running back in the class of 2026 set up not an official visit, Javian Osborne. I believe he's coming to the Stanford game, so not this weekend, but the following weekend. And because he's 2026, it doesn't have to be an official visit yet, which I don't think you can really make those until your junior and senior season, and it looks like he is a sophomore, so he's just coming to be on campus, probably get shown around, have a good time and stuff with all the other players and with his family behind the scenes and be able to watch the game and obviously get recruited by Keel McDonald, the running backs coach at USC. But yeah, either way, it's nice bit of mix of a lot of future guys, and everybody always wonders if the head coach Lincoln Riley is going to be leaving for someplace like Dallas or something like that in the NFL. But I know he's not going to leave anywhere in college because I don't think he would go to any other school. But the NFL, yeah, it kind of scares you a little bit, but I think it just depends how much that owner offers him and what he's able to get control of and all that stuff, which you don't really get much when you're playing under that guy out there in Dallas. He usually calls the shots, and that's why they've sucked the past 20-something, 30 years. And I did see last night on X that Caleb Williams will be one of the main athletes in the new Wendy's commercials during the fall for the college football stuff. So that's pretty cool. And I guess he's transferring over there or something like that. That's what their thing is. And then also ex-USC great quarterback Matt Leinart is in the commercial as well. It's not that surprising, I guess, because even the past couple years they've had Reggie Bush as an ex-player in their commercials for Wendy's, so that's pretty cool that they're still keeping on the tradition. At least we know Wendy's is a fan of USC. But then also there could be Caleb could be still out there in more commercials when it comes to the Nissan Heisman House and Nissan commercials, because usually if you won the Heisman, the next year you're in the commercial with all the other ex-Heisman winners, and they kind of do some comedic stuff and all that crap. So that'd be cool to obviously have USC's brand still out there going on throughout the season, no matter how it goes. But yes, hoping to have him come back to do another commercial next year, because then he would have won back-to-back. And I believe this Saturday is going to be 100 years of the Coliseum. I don't know if that's 100 years from when it was created out there in downtown LA, or if it's the 100 years that USC has been playing in the Coliseum. So either way, still a big centennial, congratulations to whatever it is. So either way, I think USC will get a big-time victory against Nevada this Saturday. And Team USA, yes, they're finally starting to play some more of their official FIBA games. These last 3 games, going to give an update. I didn't give an update the last video, but I will do it since all 3 games have been played. And I don't know if they're still doing a mini tournament after, so whoever had the best record of those 3 games in other areas would go. I'm pretty sure Team Canada won a lot, so maybe Team USA will play them at some point. You never know. Even Luka and his, I think it's Slovenian team, played pretty well as well. So I don't know what the brackets are, if they're still going to be continuing playing or not. But the other day, yes, Team USA did beat New Zealand 99-72. Paolo Banchero, the ex-Duke player, had 27 points, 4 blocks, and 4 rebounds. Then the next, actually 2 days after that, they beat Greece 109-87. Austin Reeves, the Laker, had 15 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds. And then just this morning, or whenever the heck they played from the Philippines, they beat Jordan 110-62. And Anthony Edwards has been pretty good for them so far. Scored 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in only like 18 minutes. So that's pretty crazy. He did all that in that short amount of time. And yeah, luckily the Duke and some Laker guys are, performing well for Team USA. It kind of seems like Austin Reeves, the Lakers player, is getting a lot more attention than all the other guys. But Anthony Edwards, I've seen, has been pretty consistent and probably their better player, in my opinion. Austin Reeves is probably next. He's been the more consistent, but it seems like those starters are a little bit less consistent and kind of lose the lead pretty early, and then the bench guys like Reeves and Tyrese Halliburton, some of those guys, even Paolo Banchero, come in and kind of start off the team, and it gets going a bit. So either way, they're still winning. And like I said, I don't know if this tournament's going to continue or not, but it most likely will, and I'll probably give an update as to who they are playing soon, and hopefully it will be another victory for them. So this last weekend, the final preseason game for the Chargers, they were able to beat the 49ers 23-12, I believe it was. Nothing too crazy. It was just a nice victory overall to see what else they can get as far as who they're going to keep on this 53-man roster, because yesterday, Tuesday, was the cut down, and a lot of these guys did not make it who were playing mostly in that game. It does suck, but that's just how the NFL goes. And the Chargers did make some moves here and there, whether it was a trade or claiming a player off of waivers, so we'll get into that real quick. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty okay game. Didn't really see it, just watched the highlights. And it's the 3rd preseason game, ready for real football. We had college football last weekend for real, and now this week we have for real college, and then the next week we'll get both college and NFL games. So definitely looking forward to that. And a couple of ex-players are getting their jersey numbers retired. I believe number 18, Charlie Joyner, and number 80, Kellen Winslow, are getting their numbers officially retired from the Chargers. I know the name Joyner. I don't really know what position he played. I know Winslow was one of their top tight ends, and obviously his son was a pretty good tight end when he was in the NFL like a decade ago, but didn't really pan out as good as his father. But yeah, either way, congrats to those guys. Didn't get to see them play, but I've definitely heard of those names talked about in Chargers lore the past, decade or so since I've been a fan. And yes, surprisingly and not surprisingly, the Arizona Cardinals traded away their 1st round pick from a few years back ago, Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker / safety, to the New York Giants, which I believe was like for a 7th or 6th round pick, which is ridiculous, especially if the Chargers didn't get their name involved, because to me he's like a different version, especially a positional wise version of a Derwin James. And at that time I wanted them to get Isaiah Simmons, which they would have gotten him because Arizona picked after, but they ended up picking, I want to say that was the Justin Herbert year, but it would have been in my mock draft, it was Isaiah Simmons and Jalen Hurts in the second round. So either way, I still think the Chargers would have had the quarterback of the future because obviously Hurts is doing really well for the Eagles and just led them to the Super Bowl. But Isaiah Simmons, to pair him up, like I've said in those old videos, with a guy like Derwin James, who's very much the same. You could put them anywhere on the field, almost feels like, and you could just do crazy amounts of stuff on defense. And the fact that he went to freaking the Giants of all places for only a 6th or 7th round pick is, like I said, ridiculous. So I don't know what the Chargers are thinking, or if they just weren't involved in this, or they just didn't get word that he was available in time and all this stuff. But yeah, I would have given up even close to a 4th, even a 5th round pick to get him. Obviously the Chargers don't like to do that, but for a guy like that, and yeah, it does suck because you most likely will have to pay him, get him a new deal. I don't know if they picked up his option or not for the next year, like the Chargers have worked out with Justin Herbert, but either way, it was still a guy that I think they should have gone after, in my opinion. And speaking of that trade, yes, they did trade away their veteran kicker, Dustin Hopkins, who was in a kicking battle with Cameron Dicker, the rookie, last year, but Dicker kind of took over when Hopkins went out with injury. And then they kind of had 2 guys who were still pretty good, but the Chargers ended up picking Cameron Dicker as their kicker, and luckily they were able to get something out of Hopkins by trading him away to Cleveland for, I believe, a 2025 7th round pick. So nothing too crazy, but at least you're able to get something in return and be able to use that on a guy, because they've kind of picked some guys here and there that have been okay passing like the 6th and 7th round. So it could be a nice get for them in a couple years in that draft. And speaking of who the Chargers claimed off of waivers, yes, it was a linebacker in Tanner Muse, who was recently with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe he was drafted by the Raiders, which I didn't like because at that time I thought he was a really good player because he played safety mostly at Clemson, but I thought like how he has transitioned into the NFL, he could play a linebacker for you also, which is what he was doing with Pittsburgh, and which is what I'm assuming he is going to be doing with the Chargers as well. But always, yeah, all these guys end up coming back eventually to the Chargers, and if they just listen to me, then they'd be all right. But yes, I still think he's a talented player. He obviously looked pretty good from some of the preseason games that I did see with Pittsburgh the past couple of weeks, but I don't know why they let him go. Maybe they just felt there were other guys at that position on their team that were better. I don't think so, but because this was, I think just today, they did have to let go of someone they did say they were going to keep on their 53-man roster yesterday, which was the fullback Xander Hovarth. They let him go, which I kind of thought, and was kind of hoping they were going to let go of a guy like the tight end Trey McKitty, who I don't know why he's still on the team unless it's just for things like this where they're going to claim somebody and let him go. I didn't mind Hovarth, but I guess they don't really feel like they need a extra running back / fullback compared to a tight end, which I kind of thought Hovarth was doing also. But I don't know, maybe there's a spot for him on the practice squad if they're able to get him back and he doesn't get claimed off of waivers, but we will see. And speaking of that practice squad, yes, the Chargers make quite a bit of moves. I have like a handful of guys I selected that, at least the names that I liked. The other names, it's like you could do with or without because they're kind of okay and just kind of fill their positions in case other guys end up getting hurt at those positions. But a couple of the names I did like were the tackle Zach Bailey, who I thought should have made the roster but didn't. Wide receiver Terrell Bynum, obviously the ex-USC guy, so you got to like him. He did some good. Defensive lineman Gerard Clark, who I thought was going to make it, but apparently not. Wide receiver Keelan Doss. And then defensive lineman C.J. Okoye and quarterback Max Dugan made it on there. So, yeah, Okoye, he's that guy who came from the Africa NFL Academy and stuff. So I think he was going to stay on with them no matter what, even if they didn't put him on the 53-man roster. So luckily he is on the practice squad and they're able to still do stuff with him, get him ready for the next couple years once he is ready to go. But yeah, either way, not that bad. It's the other guys, yeah, I didn't really care for, but even the 53-man roster that's supposedly said it's still pretty good. It's not great overall. It could still use some work, but I was going to pick like a bunch of guys who have been getting waived the past couple of days and do like a video about that, but it happened so quickly that they end up getting put on other teams, so you don't really have a chance to say you want them on your team. But one of those guys that I did like was Tanner Muse, and luckily they were more aggressive and got him off of waivers. So that's at least one of the more beneficial things to happen as of late. But yeah, to end off on some miscellaneous news, I believe it was the last week or two. It was the 30-year anniversary of Green Day's, I think it was their second record, Dookie, which was obviously the one I grew up with. That was early 90s, and that's how I knew them. I knew there was one right before that one called Kerplunk, but that was like late 80s or something like that. But yeah, one of the better albums that they have. It's pretty much started off their career. I like most of the songs on the Dookie record, and then kind of like the next one, like Insomnia and Redundant and all that stuff, it kind of became redundant. It kind of seems familiar. A lot of the other, there's a couple of good tracks on those next couple records, but Dookie was definitely one of the top ones from Green Day in my opinion. And then they did a cool thing on YouTube. They released like a couple of songs that didn't make the cut or demo versions of songs. So like I really like the different sounding version of When You Come Around, which is one of my favorite songs off that record, and also Basket Case, their #1 single off that record, is pretty good. But a lot of them too were kind of sounded similar to the main song, which I guess is why they kind of just kept it the way it was. But it was kind of fun to hear different versions of those other songs that I've liked for such a long time. So yeah, we'll see what they do. They've been doing that with a lot of their more recent anniversaries that they've had like demo versions come out of that stuff, but they waited for like big time anniversaries like 25 year, 20 year, 30 years. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just crazy that I was listening to that when I was like 3 or 4 years old and still listen to that record till this day, which is pretty crazy. So thanks, Mom. So yeah, thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.